to enjoy your time here and find peace in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. After annulling my engagement with the third prince, whose power blazed as bright as the midday sun, I turned around and married the ninth prince instead. The entire capital mocked the Dingbei Marquis manor for flipping everything upside down. Yet they allowed my legitimate eldest daughter to marry a prince who only knew how to admire flowers and walk his birds, living a life of idle leisure. They had no idea that pouring oil on a raging fire and piling velvet atop brocade was often the harbinger of total destruction. I pulled myself free of the vortex, spending every day tending flowers and grass, organizing my dowry, and cultivating my body and mind. Then the third prince was thrown into prison. My father was exiled 1,000 miles away, and my half-sister froze to death in the pleasure quarters. At that moment I was playing chess with the ninth prince, Rongzhu. I looked into his gentle eyes. Victory and defeat were already decided. Their greed knew no bounds, their wealth and honor towered to the heavens, yet in the end it all turned into a deadly curse. I was born to the Xi family, descendants of a ministerial line, the legitimate daughter of the Marquis manor. My mother was the only daughter of the great general of the state. When I was 3 years old, she fell gravely ill and passed away. Rumors spread among the common folk that I had brought death to my mother. Anyone with half a brain could guess who had started those whispers. The second old madam pulled me into her arms, pointed straight at those gossipy old women, and scolded them to their faces before driving them away. She said, "This child has clear eyes and a pure heart, she carries the purest blood of the Xi family. My son is the one who cannot tell right from wrong." My mother's body had not yet grown cold when he had already raised up that maid who crawled into his bed. Although fear of grandfather's authority kept him from granting her a formal title, he doted on those 2 bastard children to the skies. Especially my half-sister Xiwan, whose charming looks and talent for flattering father made her his favorite. In the inner courtyard of the Marquis manor, the word "rules" had become nothing more than decoration beneath father's bias. But the second old madam once told me that rules were rules. As long as grandfather still lived and as long as I remained here, this sky could not be overturned. My grandfather was the old Marquis, holding real power in his grasp. His younger brother had died in battle on a distant field years ago. The second old madam had kept her widowhood for decades and was respected throughout the capital. After grandmother passed away, grandfather handed the entire management of the inner courtyard to the second old madam. Father did not dare act recklessly before grandfather and the second old madam, so he poured every drop of his fatherly affection into the western courtyard. That autumn, Saiwan colluded with the concubine and hired a dozen ruffians from outside the manor, intending to ruin my reputation. Their scheme was shrewd once my name was destroyed. In this capital that valued bloodlines above all, the marriage originally arranged for me with the third prince would naturally fall into her hands. Unfortunately, she forgot who truly held power in this inner courtyard. Nanny Chu, who stayed by the second old madam's side, carried a brightly glowing octagonal lantern. In the time it took to drink 1 cup of tea, she had already blocked that ruffian right outside the corner gate of the western courtyard. The lantern light illuminated the ruffian's panicked face and clearly revealed the concubine's deathly pale expression as she rushed over. Where did this lowly scum come from, daring to barge into the inner courtyard of the Marquis manor? Nanny Chu had navigated the inner courtyard decades, her words carried the weight of authority. The ruffian was pinned to the ground by 2 sturdy old women, his mouth still shouting nonsense. "I'm here to find the young miss of the Xi family. She arranged for me to come." His mouth called for the young miss of the Xi family, yet his eyes were fixed greedily toward the western courtyard. I stood in the shadow of the corridor, watching the scene and finding it utterly ridiculous. This ruffian probably could not tell east from west, or had taken money without understanding the full story. The person he was meant to find was me, Si Qingru, legitimate eldest daughter of the Dingbei Marquis manor. Yet the place he groveled at now was the western courtyard where Shi Wan lived. In the end, the whole commotion concluded beneath the second old madam's thunderous methods. The ruffian was beaten half to death and delivered to the authorities that very night on charges of breaking into a private residence at night with intent to steal. As for the old woman guarding the corner gate, who had accepted the concubine's bribe, she was sold straight into the coal kiln. I feared she would never see sunlight again in this lifetime. The next morning, father stormed furiously into the Hall of Honor. He did not even pay respects to the second old madam. The moment he stepped through the door, he smashed a teacup to the floor. Aunt, what is the meaning of this? Last night Warner was frightened into a high fever. You did not call a doctor. Fine. But why have someone tortured right in front of the western courtyard gate? That ruffian was screaming so miserably. Wasn't it deliberately meant to scare Warner to death? The second old madam sat on the Arhat bed, fingers turning her prayer beads, not even bothering to lift her eyelids. Are you questioning me? Father froze, his momentum halved, yet he still stubbornly raised his neck, and said, I would not dare. It is only that Warner's body is frail and cannot withstand torment. Ching Ru is the elder sister. Nothing happened yesterday, so why make such a huge fuss that throwing the entire manor into chaos and turning it upside down? I stood to one side, serving tea to the second old madam. I gently set the cup beside her hand, then turned to face father. Did he mean we had to wait until his daughter was truly ruined before it counted as something happening? Father clearly had not expected me to speak back. He was stunned for a moment before embarrassment turned to rage. What are you saying? You are the legitimate daughter with noble status. Who would dare touch you? Warner is different. How is she different? I cut him off. Is it because she has a concubine mother wholeheartedly bent on destroying my reputation, or because she herself is as stupid as a pig? Even that ruffian could only find someone utterly clueless, unable to tell east from west. Insolent. Father raised his hand to slap me. The second old madam slammed her teacup down hard on the table. Si Huang, do you think I am already dead? That shout finally brought father back to his senses. He awkwardly withdrew his hand, face flushing red. Second old madam, look at her. Disrespectful to her elders. Where is the bearing of a noble young lady anymore? The second old madam laughed coldly. A precious noble young lady. The Warner you dote on and cradle in your heart, has indeed been taught very well. She wanted to lead a man from outside the manor straight into the inner courtyard, to ruin her elder sister's reputation. Tell me, which family's daughter is as vicious as her? In the end she nearly destroyed herself instead. If Nanny Chu had not acted quickly yesterday and stopped that ruffian from rushing into the western courtyard, today the entire capital would know that the Dingbei Marquis Manor has a concubine's daughter who secretly consorted with an outsider. At that point, forget the third prince. Even the street vendors in the market would not dare marry her. The moment the third prince was mentioned, father's expression changed at once. Right now he was dreaming of becoming the emperor's father-in-law, and Shi Wan was the chess piece he used to curry favor with the third prince. There could be no mistakes. Second old madam teaches correctly. Father bowed his head and admitted fault, but I clearly saw the unwillingness burning in his eyes. Before leaving, he stopped beside me. The set of red jade jewelry your mother left behind years ago is merely gathering dust in the storeroom. Warner was frightened this time. It would be perfect to give it to her for comfort. I suddenly raised my head. That set of jewelry was part of my mother's dowry and her most cherished possession while she lived. It was a battlefield trophy my maternal grandfather had won, later crafted by palace artisans. Each blood-red gemstone was worth an entire city. It had been prepared for me when I married out. Yet now he wanted to give it to a concubine's daughter to calm her nerves. No, I refused on instinct. Father snorted coldly. I am your father. Do I not have the right to decide matters in the Marquis manor? Someone come. Go to the eldest young Mrs. storeroom. Take that set of jewelry and deliver it to the western courtyard. He was taking revenge. Revenge for my daring to talk back earlier. Revenge for the second old madam suppressing the western courtyard. Since he could not touch the second old madam, he could only vent his anger on me. I was about to speak when the second old madam gently held my hand. She looked at me and shook her head slightly. I understood at once. Some things were not meant for everyone to enjoy. If father had already decided so firmly, his daughter naturally dared not disobey. I lowered my eyes, hiding the coldness at their depths. My voice returned to calm. It is only that this set of jewelry is old. Although the red gemstones are beautiful, they easily attract baleful energy. When she was alive, mother often said the object was too radiant and ordinary people could hardly suppress it. My younger sister has thin blessings. Father should reconsider. Father thought I was reluctant and sneered. Warner has great blessings. In the future she will even become a prince's consort. What could she not suppress? Do not use those super ghost stories to scare people. With that, he led several old women away arrogantly. Not long after, cheers rang out from the western courtyard. It was said that Shi Wan's illness had improved considerably. She even crawled out of bed, hugged the jewelry set with love, refusing to let go, immediately put it on her head, and ran several laps around the courtyard. She even specially sent someone to pass me a message. Thank you, elder sister, for the generous gift. I will definitely cherish it carefully and bring it with me on the day I gloriously marry out. I sat by the window listening to Hongmei angrily recount it and only smiled faintly, continuing to prune the branches of the wintersweet pot before me. Young miss, how can you still smile? That is the relic the madame left for you. Hongmei stamped her foot in anxiety. What is there to worry about? I merely trimmed one extra branch. Some things may look like blessings but are actually disasters. If she likes it, let her wear it. Sure enough, retribution arrived even faster than I imagined. Because the colors were too radiant, the red jade jewelry set emitted an eerie glow beneath the nighttime candlelight. Xie Wan loved beauty so much that she kept it beside her bed even while sleeping. That night the western courtyard suddenly erupted in chaos because of cats. Several stray cats came from nowhere, rushing madly into Xi Wan's boudoir and clawing her face in disarray. It was said they were dazzled by the gemstone's light, or that the jewelry carried some scent that drove the wild cats into frenzy. Who could say? The western courtyard echoed with earth-shaking cries. Xi Wan's face was left with several bloody gashes, one stretching from the corner of her eye all the way to the corner of her mouth. Although the tendons were unharmed, if scars remained, her appearance for this lifetime would be ruined. The red jade jewelry set was also shattered and scattered in the chaos, gemstones rolling across the floor. Father was furious to the point of madness. He urgently summoned the imperial physician and then a great master. The great master circled the jewelry several times, muttering mysteriously that this object carried too heavy a baleful aura. Unless one possessed a destiny of great wealth and nobility, it could not be suppressed. The second young Mrs. Bazi was too weak, so she suffered the backlash. The moment these words left his mouth, Father's face turned ashen. He recalled what I had said yesterday and looked at Xi Wan's miserable face. Regret and fear warred in his heart. In the end he had no choice but to order someone to return the pile of shattered jewelry to my courtyard, along with quite a few precious medicinal herbs as compensation. Looking at the pile of items returned from the western courtyard on the table, I told Hongmei to find a box, store them inside, and lock it deep in the storeroom. Young miss, you truly are like a god, Hongmei said in amazement as she tidied. How did you know this jewelry set would lure cats? I held the teacup in my hand and gently brushed the foam from the water's surface. The jewelry naturally could not lure cats by itself. It is only that on this set I had someone apply a layer of catnip water. This kind of catnip water is colorless and odorless. Humans cannot smell it, yet cats are extremely sensitive and easily driven mad. I prepared for this day long ago. How could I let mother's things fall into the hands of the western courtyard? This is only the beginning. I looked at the gloomy sky outside the window and said softly, if Xi Wan wants to wear that prince consort crown, she must first see whether she possesses the fate to bear it. Young miss truly foresees like a god. Hongmei said joyfully. If you had not ordered this servant to have people secretly watch the western courtyard, that ruffian would already rushed into our eastern courtyard. I smiled faintly. Xi Wan wants to suppress me at every turn. At such a critical time for marriage discussions, how could I not take precautions? Young miss. Hongmei bit her lip and hesitated a moment before continuing. Why did you not let that ruffian go straight into the western courtyard? Because I cannot ruin the Marquis Manor's face. Just wait, the retribution is still to come. Xi Wan nursed her injuries for 2 whole months. Finally, before the day of the palace flower banquet, she could barely go out to meet people. The scratch marks had faded slightly, but they were still visible, and had to be covered with thick powder to hide them. Before setting out, she blocked me at the second gate. Today she wore a dazzling peach-red dress embroidered with flowers, her hair bun pinned full of gold and jade ornaments, as if she hated not being able to pile the entire jewelry box on her head. Seeing me in a simple white brocade robe, jealousy flashed in her eyes. Then she immediately raised her chin arrogantly and said, "Elder sister is dressed like this. Could it be that you plan to go to the temple to chant sutras today? Today is the flower banquet, hosted by Her Majesty the Empress. If elder sister lacks beautiful clothes, I still have several bolts of new silk that have not been cut. Why don't I gift them to elder sister? I only glanced at her once and did not reply. Hongmei beside me could not hold back and snorted softly. Second young miss, please watch your words. What the eldest young miss wears is flowing light brocade, which the old marquis specially ordered from Jiangnan. It looks simple, yet every inch is worth its weight in gold. As for second young miss's outfit, it is a bit too gaudy. People who do not know better might think an opera troupe is preparing to take the stage. Siwan stamped her foot in fury, about to explode when she saw the second old madam approaching with her cane. She instantly swallowed her anger and switched to an obedient appearance. Second old madam, may you be in peace and health. The second old madam did not even look at her. She walked straight to me and adjusted my collar. Qingru, although today's palace event is flower appreciation, in truth it is for selecting consorts for the several princes. Now that all the princes have been infeft as kings, remember one thing: in the future our C family does not seek wealth and glory, we only seek peace and safety. I nodded. Granddaughter understands. Only then did the second old madam nod in satisfaction and take my hand as we boarded the carriage. Siwan gritted her teeth and climbed into the smaller carriage behind. The flower banquet was held in the imperial flower garden. At this time hundreds of flowers vied in bloom. Many young ladies from noble families had already arrived, gathering in groups with laughter and chatter. The moment Siwan entered the garden, she could not resist squeezing into the center of the crowd. Relying on her sharp tongue and eye-catching attire, she quickly drew quite a few gazes. I accompanied the second old madam to find a quiet pavilion and sat down. Whose young lady is that? Her outfit is truly flashy. Soft laughter drifted from not far away. I followed the sound and saw several lavishly dressed noble young ladies pointing at Siwan, their eyes full of mockery. Siwan remained completely unaware and continued showing off her zither skills that father had specially hired a famous master to teach her. That is the second young miss of the Dingbei Marquis Manor. I heard she is a concubine's daughter. Her bearing is truly that of a proper young lady. But the one sitting in the pavilion over there is the legitimate daughter of the Marquis' manor. Right? I heard she was raised beneath the second old madam's knee. That is why her manners and aura are so excellent. As they spoke, a sudden commotion came from the other side of the garden. His Highness the Prince of Jin has arrived. The third prince most favored by the current emperor. Prince of Jin Rongzhou was born with an exceptionally handsome face. Sword-like brows and starry eyes, yet a faint arrogance and killing intent lingered about him. The moment he appeared, the lively imperial flower garden fell instantly silent. All the noble ladies blushed, some with affectionate gazes, others tense with unease. Siwan grew so excited her hands trembled. She adjusted her sideburns and deliberately tripped with a cry as the Prince of Jin passed by, falling heavily toward him. This kind of scene might become a beautiful anecdote in storybooks, but right now it looked especially clumsy and embarrassing. The Prince of Jin did not even pause his steps. He merely shifted slightly and let Siwan crash heavily to the ground. The eunuch beside him shrieked sharply. Where did this rule-breaking thing come from? Siwan lay face down on the ground, her face red as a pig's liver, tears welling but not daring to cry aloud. Soft mocking laughter rang out around her. The Prince of Jin's cold gaze swept the entire venue and finally landed on the pavilion where I sat. He seemed a little surprised, slightly furrowed his brows, then walked straight toward us. Greetings to His Highness the Third Prince. The Prince of Jin's eyes lingered on me a moment. This is the legitimate daughter of Marquis C. Indeed. The second old madam replied in a casual tone. Truly a young lady from a renowned family, with extraordinary bearing. The Prince of Jin smiled faintly, his gaze carrying deep meaning as he glanced toward Siwan still lying on the ground. Much better than some concubine's daughter who does not know her place. When Siwan heard those words, her body suddenly trembled, nails digging deep into the mud. I lowered my head without speaking, yet my heart was crystal clear. He appeared to be praising me, but in truth he was stirring trouble, placing me on the fire to roast. A man like him, arrogant and self-important, if he set his eyes on you, it was definitely not a good thing. The Prince of Jin did not linger long. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he left. The moment he departed, Siwan finally dared to crawl up from the ground and awkwardly hide behind the crowd. The hatred in her heart had probably risen to the heavens. When the banquet reached its midpoint, I used the excuse of changing clothes and slipped away from the crowd alone, heading to a more secluded spot behind a rockery. I was about to breathe a sigh of relief when I heard steady breathing sounds coming from behind the rockery. My heart gave a start, thinking someone was conducting a secret affair here. I was about to turn and leave when a lazy voice rang out. "Since you have come, why rush away? How about sharing a cup of tea? It is not too much, is it?" I stopped, turned my head, and saw a man in green robes lying on a large rock in the rockery, a book covering his face. His features were not clearly visible, yet his aura exuded an indescribable ease and freedom. I hesitated a moment, then had Hongmei hand over the teapot I carried. "Please enjoy, young master." The man reached out to accept the teapot but did not rise. He simply removed the book from his face, revealing an unparalleled handsome countenance. His looks were extremely beautiful, brows like a painting, smooth as jade, yet those eyes hid layers of depth that made him impossible to see through. He tilted his head, drank a sip, and praised. "Good tea. Longjing harvested before Qingming, brewed with snow water and plum blossoms." I felt a flicker of surprise in my heart. Very few people could taste such a subtle difference. Young master overpraises. I do not wish to linger, and was about to take my leave. He suddenly sat up and looked at me with a half-smile. "Just now in the Imperial Flower Garden, your half-sister fell quite hard. You are the legitimate elder sister, yet you did not even glance at her. Are you not afraid people will call you heartless?" My steps halted. I turned and looked at him calmly. The path was one she chose herself, and the fall was also her own doing. If I had helped her, she would only think I was watching her make a fool of herself. I did not help. Although she hates me, at least she will remember a lesson. There are too many people in this world who want to climb high yet end up falling and shattering into pieces. If I helped everyone, I fear I would be dragged into the abyss myself. When the man heard this, a strange light flashed in his eyes. He clapped his hands and laughed loudly. "Well said. Not wanting to be dragged into the abyss. Miss Shi is indeed insightful." He stood, dusted off his clothes and cupped his hands toward me. "I am Rongzi. I will remember this cup of tea from Miss Ji. The 9th Prince Rongja. The rumored idle prince who only knew how to eat, drink, and play, the legendary one with no learning or skills, only knowing how to roam mountains and waters." I was slightly stunned, then immediately paid my respects. "This humble woman greets His Highness Prince Xian." He waved his hand, showing no princely airs whatsoever. "Today in this garden, some want to climb the dragon and attach to the phoenix, others wait for the right price to sell themselves. Only Miss Shi seems to stand outside watching the play." He stepped closer and lowered his voice. "This play is good, but it also easily draws fire upon oneself. Miss Shi, take care of yourself." With that he laughed loudly and departed, leaving me only a carefree back. I stood in place, watching the direction he left, a faint ripple rising in my heart. This Rong-ju did not seem as simple as the rumors claimed. His final words sounded even more like a reminder. When I returned to the banquet, the atmosphere had already changed. Saiwan had changed into another outfit at some point and returned to the side of the Prince of Jin. At this moment she shyly lowered her head, while the Prince of Jin played with an exquisite sachet, embroidered by Siwan herself. It seemed that even after one fall, this beauty trap still worked. Father stood beside them smiling so widely his mouth could not close, as if he had already seen the day he would become the emperor's father-in-law. The second old madam glanced at me, worry flickering in her eyes. "Humph, the Prince of Jin probably does not truly value Siwan. Your father." The second old madam sighed heavily. "It seems the world is about to change." I took the second old madam's hand and said softly, "A changing sky is not frightening. As long as we close our windows tightly, no matter how fierce the wind and rain outside, it will not blow into our house." But I never expected that storm to arrive faster than I imagined. On the way back to the manor after the banquet ended, Father's carriage directly blocked our path. He lifted the curtain, face beaming, and said to the second old madam, "Second old madam, great joy. Just now the eunuch beside His Highness the Prince of Jin hinted that His Highness is very satisfied with our family's daughter and intends to request an imperial decree to take her as side consort." The second old madam frowned. "Wanner." Father shook his head. His eyes fell on me, greedy light flashing. "No, it is Qing Ru." The prayer beads in the second old madam's hand suddenly paused. "What did you say?" Father rubbed his hands together, face filled with excitement. "Second old madam, that is the Prince of Jin. Now the emperor's health is unstable. Everyone in court knows the Prince of Jin is the most promising. If Qingru can enter the Prince of Jin's manor, even if only as a side consort, in the future she will be a noble consort. Our C family returning to its peak is within reach. Foolish. The cane in the second old madam's hand struck the carriage floor heavily. Before this you were wholeheartedly set on Shi Wan marrying into the Prince of Jin's manor. Why do you now want Qingru to suffer this? Father shrank back. What is wrong with Qingru becoming a side consort? I sat in the corner of the carriage listening to father's words of selling his daughter for glory, and felt only endless chill in my heart. Father. My voice was calm. Do you truly believe the Prince of Jin is sincerely proposing? Father was stunned. What do you mean? At today's flower banquet, you also saw the Prince of Jin's attitude toward my younger sister Wanner. So why has he suddenly changed his mind now, specifically naming me as the side consort? I raised my eyes and looked straight at father. What he values is neither Wanner nor me, but the Marquis's manor, grandfather's old subordinates, and the connections of my elder brother. He wants to seize power, he needs military authority and support. Father's expression changed. He had obviously been struck by my words. Shamed into anger, he snapped. So what? As long as she can marry into the Prince of Jin's manor, why care about the reason? You are a daughter of the C family. Should you not contribute to the clan? I can contribute, I said indifferently, but I absolutely will not be his concubine. Father raised his hand again to strike, but the second old madam's shout stopped him. I lowered the carriage curtain, no longer looking at father's face full of resentment. When we returned to the manor, grandfather sat in the high seat. After hearing the second old madam's report, his face turned so dark it looked as if water could drip from it. You bastard, I am not dead yet you day trade Qingru for your future prospects. Do you think my old bones have lived too long? Father knelt on the ground, trembling nonstop, but still tried to argue. Father, I only said it for the sake of the family. The Prince of Jin is a dragon and phoenix among men. Dragon and phoenix among men. Grandfather laughed coldly. I see him more like that wolf from Zhongshan. Savage and ungrateful. He hasn't even sat on the throne yet, and he's already plotting against his own subjects. If a man like him ascends, our C family will be the first hunting dogs thrown into the pot once the rabbits are gone. The older the ginger, the spicier it gets. Grandfather had seen through the third prince's true nature with a single glance. I will never agree to this marriage. My word is final. Tomorrow I will enter the palace. I'll stake this old face of mine to refuse it outright. Father panicked. Father, if you refuse, won't that be a slap to the Prince of Jin's face? What if he holds a grudge later? If he holds a grudge, then so be it. Grandfather's voice was icy. Our C family has bones of iron and stone. Are we supposed to fear him? Seeing the stalemate stretch on, I drew a deep breath and stepped forward. Grandfather, father, please allow Qingru to speak. I walked into the center of the hall and knelt in a full salute. Grandfather is right. The C family's backbone cannot be broken. But if we reject this marriage outright, we will truly offend the Prince of Jin and bring disaster upon the family. Father's eyes lit up. Qingru, you've finally seen reason. I ignored him and continued calmly. But what if we simply switch the person? Switch the person. The second old madam frowned slightly. Father has always wanted to climb high. My younger sister Wanner is talented and beautiful, and she already shares a mutual affection with the Prince of Jin. Why not go with the flow and push the boat along? I raised my head, eyes clear and bright. Today in the Imperial Flower Garden, everyone witnessed with their own eyes how Wanner chatted happily with His Highness and even exchanged tokens of affection. Moreover, Father has long wished for Wanner to marry into the Prince of Jin's manor. Even as a side consort, you yourself said the Prince of Jin is a dragon among men and would never wrong her. Father hesitated. But the Prince of Jin specifically named me. He wants a daughter of the Shi family. Does it really matter which one? As long as the C family shows enough sincerity, anything is possible. I guided him gently. Besides, your daughter recently had nightmares and specially consulted a great master about her fate. The master said, my destiny clashes violently with the Prince of Jin's. I fear it would harm his fortune. In the mild case, his future prospects would suffer. In the severe, I paused, then lowered my voice, there would be bloodshed. What? Father's face drained of color. He had always been extremely superstitious, checking the imperial almanac even before stepping out the door. These words are true. Your daughter would never dare deceive you. I lied without changing expression. The master also said Wanner's appearance is extremely noble and carries the sign of a husband, boosting wife. If she marries His Highness, she will certainly help him soar straight to the top. If Father does not believe me, you may ask the master yourself. Father's eyes began to waver. He weighed me against Shi Wan. One was the legitimate daughter whose fate might kill her husband. The other was the concubine, born daughter who could boost her husband's fortune and had always obeyed him. The choice was not difficult for him, yet Si Wan was still a concubine's daughter, so a trace of hesitation remained. In my heart I laughed softly. Only now did he remember she was a concubine, born child. That would depend entirely on how much sincerity Father was willing to show. I smiled faintly. Father need only declare that Wanner has been recorded under mother's name since childhood and was raised beneath the second old madam's knee. At a slightly richer dowry, and His Highness will certainly not reject Father's face over such a small matter. Besides, Wanner is utterly devoted to him. Unlike your daughter, who is dull and boring, I fear she would never win the prince's favor. Father was completely moved. He slapped his thigh. Fine. We'll do it exactly like that. Grandfather and the second old madam exchanged a glance, both seeing the helplessness and tacit understanding in the other's eyes. This was the best way to break the deadlock right now, preserving our family's backbone and mine, while not completely offending the Prince of Jin, and conveniently sending off that restless concubine, born daughter. 1 arrow, 3 targets. I wrote a letter to the general's manor for my maternal uncle. After that, everything fell into place smoothly. Father took heavy gifts and Wanner's bazi and went straight to the Prince of Jin's manor that very night. I deliberately had someone spread the rumor that my 8 characters clashed with the Prince of Jin's, and with Father working behind the scenes, the imperial decree arrived the next day. Si Wan was bestowed in marriage to Prince of Jin Rongzhou as his side consort. When Father returned, his face glowed as if he had picked up a priceless bargain. He stood before the entire family boasting, His Highness personally promised that although Wanner enters as side consort, he has not yet taken a principal consort. All management of the inner manor will be left to her, exactly the same as a principal consort. Moreover, with the Prince of Jin's current reputation, in the future he will be the one pointing at the sky with one hand. His face flushed red. Wanner this time will enjoy boundless wealth and honor. Even as side consort, she will become a noble lady in the palace later, worth 100 times more than those other princess consorts with no future. As he spoke, he deliberately glanced at me. I also received my own imperial decree. The emperor bestowed me in marriage to Prince Xianrong as his principal consort. When the news reached me, I was trimming flower branches with the second old madam. Prince Xian. The second old madam sighed. Although he is only an idle prince with no power or influence, at least you will be the principal consort. Life can still be peaceful. It is only that you are still the one who suffers. The second old madam understood clearly in her heart. In this capital where people stepped on the low and lifted the high, a side consort of the Prince of Jin, who might one day seize the throne, was far superior to the principal consort of an idle prince pushed to the sidelines. In the eyes of the world, the former was the soaring phoenix. I set down the shears and watched the dry leaves drift outside the window, my heart perfectly calm. This was the decision I had thought through carefully. That man in green drinking tea behind the rockery that day. I did not believe he was as simple as he appeared, yet he was the best choice at this moment. Your granddaughter does not feel wronged, I said softly. Glory and wealth are nothing but passing clouds. Your granddaughter only seeks peace in this lifetime. The moment the imperial decree was announced, the entire capital shook. Everyone mocked the Dingbei Marquis's manor for flipping legitimate and concubine, born daughters upside down. They laughed at me. The legitimate eldest daughter truly has no blessings. Have you heard? The Si family's concubine, born daughter has flown onto the high branch and turned into a phoenix this time. The Prince of Jin is no ordinary man. His future is limitless, isn't it? As for that legitimate daughter, she's married to Prince Shan, who only knows how to walk birds and fight crickets. Her life is basically over. Task, same parents, completely different fates. What does it matter that she's legitimate born? In the end she's still trampled beneath the concubine, born one. The rumors grew wings and flew straight into the Marquis's manor. Even the servants' gazes toward me now carried pity mixed with contempt. They turned around and rushed to flatter the western courtyard instead. The western courtyard hung lanterns and tied red silk as if Siwan had already become crown princess. Siwan grew even more arrogant and came specially to my courtyard to comfort me. Elder sister, don't be too sad. Although Prince Xian has no future, at least you are the principal consort. The title still sounds respectable. She stroked the jade bracelet on her wrist, a gift from the Prince of Jin. Unlike me, although I am only a side consort, His Highness has already said that in his heart there is only me. Inside the manor, whatever I say goes. In the future, that position of principal consort will naturally be mine. She covered her mouth and laughed softly, every glance and smile overflowing with smugness. I set the book in my hand down and looked at her indifferently. Younger sister having such ambition is a good thing. It is only that a prince's manor is as deep as the sea. Once you enter, you must watch your step carefully. Don't be like that time in the imperial flower garden. Before you had even steadied your footing on the path, you already fell flat on your face. Siwan's expression changed. Remembering her humiliating scene that day, a flash of poisonous resentment crossed her eyes. No need for elder sister to worry. You should worry about yourself instead. I hear Prince Xian's manor is so poor even the rats refuse to visit. Once you marry over, I'm afraid you'll be drinking the northwest wind to survive. With that she snorted coldly, swayed her slender waist, and left. Watching her retreating figure, Hongmei's eyes reddened with anger. Young miss, she is truly too much. A mere side consort daring to be so arrogant, when you are the rightful princess consort. I picked the book back up and turned a page. Let her be arrogant. The higher she flies, the harder she will fall. The wind in this capital has only just begun to blow. The wedding date was set for the 8th day of the next month. Two princes marrying on the same day in the capital was quite a rare event. On one side was the Prince of Jin, currently at the height of his power, taking a side consort. On the other was the idle and neglected Prince Xian marrying his principal consort. Father wanted Siwan's wedding to be spectacular. He spared no expense, even dipping into the public treasury to prepare a lavish dowry. Bolts of red, gold, and silver silk, pearls, and jewels flowed into the western courtyard like water. Even the servants received generous rewards, and everyone bustled about in high spirits. In contrast, my eastern courtyard remained cold and desolate. No one even bothered to patch the torn window paper. That day I was inside my room inventorying the dowry list my mother had left behind. Hongmei stormed in, eyes red, rimmed. Young miss, come quickly and look. The marquise has gone too far. I set down my brush, expression still calm. What happened? Speak clearly. The marquise brought people to the storeroom. He said the second young Mrs. Dowry is still missing a few precious items to press the bottom of her dowry chest and wants to take the pair of blood jade bracelets and the double-sided embroidered screen that the madam left for you. Hongmei trembled with rage. Those are the madam's relics. Moreover, that screen was bestowed to the madam by Her Majesty the Empress Dowager herself. How can they be given to a concubine-born daughter as dowry? My eyes turned cold. I stood up and went to see for myself. At the storeroom door, father was directing several old women to carry things out. The concubine stood beside him, holding the pair of blood jade bracelets, smiling so widely her face looked like a blooming flower. The marquise truly dotes on honor. If she wears these, she will definitely win His Highness the Prince of Jin's heart. Siwan was there too, stroking the embroidered screen with reluctant greed in her eyes. This screen is truly beautiful. It would look perfect in my room. Stop right there. I spoke coldly and strode into the courtyard with Hongmei. Instant silence fell. The old women saw me and flinched, halting their movements. When father noticed me, his face darkened. What are you doing here? Instead of staying inside to embroider your wedding clothes, you run out to show your face. Where are your manners? I ignored his scolding, my gaze fixed on the bracelets in the concubine's hands. Those are mother's relics. Who does father intend to give them to? Father coughed awkwardly. Your younger sister is getting married. Her dowry is missing a few decent items. You are the elder sister. You should help. These things you keep on your body are useless anyway. Prince Xian spends all day eating, drinking, and playing. If you bring them over, they will only gather dust. I laughed coldly. If father uses his own private money to help, your daughter will not say a single word. But these are part of mother's dowry, left specifically for me. Father is taking relics of his late wife to pad the dowry of a daughter born to a concubine. Aren't you afraid mother will be chilled to the bone in the afterlife? Outrageous. Father exploded with rage. I am your father. Everything in this manor belongs to me. I can give it to whomever I please. Your dead mother has been gone for so many years, yet you still use her to pressure me. The concubine beside him pretended to mediate. Eldest young miss, don't be angry. The Marquise is only doing this for Wanner. Besides, once Wanner rises in status later, won't she take care of her elder sister? Saiwan also raised her chin. That's right. Once elder sister marries Prince Xian, you will need a lot of money in the future. If I am favored, I can casually bestow you a little and it will be enough for your clothes and food. It was clear father was determined to rob my dowry. He snorted. Rob, what a vulgar word. Someone come. Take them away. I want to see who dares stop me. The old women received the order and moved again. Hong Mei rushed forward in panic to protect the screen, but one of the women shoved her hard and she fell to the ground. I hurried to help her up. Father waved his hand in annoyance. Drag this meddlesome servant girl away. We are using the late madam's relics to supplement the concubine, born daughter's dowry. Father wants the imperial censors to impeach you, I said firmly. Or should I go invite grandfather right now to open the ancestral hall and apply family law? You rebellious girl. Father raised his hand to strike me again. Grandfather is still here. This Marquise manor is not yet yours to rule alone. Siwan is only a side consort, yet you want to prepare her dowry according to the principal consort standard. Father, are you trying to destroy the Shi family's reputation? Father pointed at me, hand shaking. You dare lecture your own father? I'll beat you to death. Hold her down. I want to see who dares move. A long spear tore through the air and embedded itself deeply in the storeroom door. The old women were so terrified their souls nearly left their bodies, they scrambled aside. Everyone turned in shock. Ah, my eyes grew hot. Elder brother Shi Ling strode forward, one hand pulling me behind him. I risk my life killing enemies on the border to protect the country, yet at home you dare bully my younger sister like this. When father saw Xi Ling, his momentum instantly halved. Xi Ling was not only the legitimate eldest son but had also established himself in the army through military merit. Even the emperor had once praised him. The Xi Ling standing here now was no longer the youth who would let father beat and scold him at will. Linglinger, why have you returned? Father stammered. If I hadn't returned, mother's dowry left for Qingru would have been completely cleaned out by all of you. Elder brother laughed coldly, yanked the spear from the door, and pointed the tip straight at the bracelets in the concubine's hands. She was so frightened her hands shook, and the bracelets nearly fell. She hastily stuffed them back into their box and hid behind father. Si Wan, too, was cowed by the killing aura radiating from Xi Ling and shrank back, not daring to speak. Elder brother turned to me. The murderous intent in his eyes instantly melted into gentleness. Don't be afraid. Big brother is back now. He reached out to tidy a few stray strands of my hair, his voice slightly hoarse. Big brother came back too late and let you suffer grievances. I shook my head. The tears I had been holding back finally fell. It's good that big brother is back. What is all this noise? Where are your manners? Grandfather arrived leaning on his cane. The moment father saw him, his legs went soft. He rushed forward to pay respects. Father, why have you come? Grandfather did not even glance at him. He walked straight to elder brother, patted his shoulder, and said, Good boy, you've grown stronger. It's good you're back. It's good you're back. Then his gaze fell on the chaotic courtyard and the dowry items that had not yet been carried away. His face darkened instantly. What is the meaning of this? Father stammered. This son only wanted to add a few more items to Wanner's dowry. Add to her dowry. You plan to take the late madam's dowry left for Qingru and give it to Shiwan. You dare. Grandfather snorted coldly and slammed his cane heavily onto the ground. Father dropped to his knees in fear. This son knows his mistake. Grandfather turned to the steward behind him. Go fetch the inventory list and check everything once more. Also, he pointed at Siwan. Since she is concubine, born and only a side consort, follow the proper rules. The public treasury will provide one portion of dowry. No more, not even a fraction extra. Si Wang, if you want to use your own private money to add to it, I will not interfere, but you are not allowed to touch these items. Si Wan's face turned deathly pale. Tears welled up, but she did not dare cry aloud. The concubine collapsed onto the ground like a pile of mud. The entire uproar finally ended under grandfather's and elder brother's firm intervention. That night, elder brother came to my courtyard. He had people carry in 2 large chests. Qingru, these are the assets big brother accumulated over the years on the border. They may not be as precious as mother's dowry, but there are a few rare items. He opened the chests. Inside were piled Western region gemstones, precious furs, and several exquisitely crafted weapons for self-defense. Prince Xian may be idle, but he is still of the imperial family. If he dares bully you, Si Ling clenched his fists. Big brother will throw away this official robe and demand justice for you even if it costs me everything. Looking at the 2 heavy chests filled with heartfelt care, a warm current rose in my chest. Big brother, rest assured, I will live very well. I picked up a gem, inlay dagger, drew it slightly, and a cold gleam flashed. I am not a soft persimmon for others to bully either. On the 8th day, heaven smiled upon us. The sky was clear for 10,000 miles. Before the Marquis' manor gates, 2 bridal sedans stood one behind the other. Although I was marrying an idle prince, the ceremony was carried out with full dignity. The momentum grandfather and elder brother had fought for me. In contrast, no matter how grandly they spoke, Siwan could only follow the regulations for a side consort. Father stood at the gate watching Siwan set in, eyes full of reluctance and expectation. Elder brother carried me step by step out of the Marquis' manor's main gate, then personally placed my hand into Prince Xianrongzu's. The bridal sedan was lifted amid lively music. Compared to the bustle at the Marquis' manor, the wedding hall of the prince's manor felt somewhat quiet. That was exactly Rongju's position in the capital. Pushed to the edge, without power or influence, and ignored by everyone. But that was precisely what I wanted. After the lengthy rituals, I was led into the bridal chamber. After an unknown length of time, the door was pushed open. The moment the red veil was lifted, I raised my eyes and met Rongju's smiling gaze. Today he wore deep red wedding robes that only enhanced his already peerless features, making him look dashing and refined. I made the princess wait too long. His voice was gentle as jade, carrying no trace of drunkenness. I rose your curtsied. This concubine greets your highness. He helped me up. There is no need for such formality inside the manor, and you do not need to call yourself this concubine. I lowered my eyes without speaking. It seemed I had bet correctly. After drinking the wedding wine, all the servants withdrew. Only the 2 of us remained in the chamber, and the atmosphere grew subtly charged. I was wondering how to break the silence when Rongju spoke first. He walked to the table, poured 2 cups of tea himself, and handed one to me. You must be tired today. Have a sip to moisten your throat. I accepted the cup and took a sip. It was exactly the pre-rain longjing I had brewed for him that day behind the rockery in the Imperial Flower Garden. Your Highness still remembers. Rongju smiled. How could I forget the tea Qingru personally brewed? Then his expression grew serious. Qingru, I know this marriage has wronged you. I set the teacup down and looked at him. Why does your Highness say that? I have no power or influence. I cannot give you boundless wealth and honor, nor can I give you the glory that makes the world look up to you. This place is indeed much quieter than Third Brother's manor. His gaze was frank, simply stating a fact. My heart stirred slightly. Your Highness. I met his eyes steadily, voice calm. Glory and wealth are nothing but fleeting clouds. Tranquility is what lasts. Qingru does not seek riches. I only seek one person with a single heart, a lifetime of peace. Though this place is quiet, there is no scheming or struggle. To Qingru, that is already the best refuge. Rongju looked at me. The smile in his eyes deepened. Indeed, only tranquility lasts. He took a key and a seal from his sleeve and gently placed them on the table. From today onward, the key to the manor's storeroom and the official seal are yours. I was stunned. Your Highness, on our wedding night. I am used to idleness and dread troublesome matters the most. He stretched lazily, returning to his usual carefree demeanor. Now that I have married a virtuous wife, I naturally want to enjoy a bit of leisure. From now on, big or small matters in the manor, you decide. There is no need to ask me. I looked at the seal. That symbol of the highest authority for the mistress of the prince's manor. He was telling me that inside this manor I was safe, and I was free. If your Highness truly trusts me, then Qingru will accept. I put away the key and seal. The unease I had felt toward the future finally eased by more than half. That night there was none of the passionate scene I had imagined. Rongju behaved like a perfect gentleman and simply held me while we slept. The next morning when I woke, I looked at the man still sleeping beside me, and a strange sense of peace rose in my heart. Here, I no longer needed to constantly guard against my half-sister's schemes, nor live-watching father's changing moods. After the wedding, life truly became exactly as I had hoped, peaceful and unhurried. Rongzhe really was an idle prince. Every day, aside from attending court for appearance's sake, he stayed inside the manor amusing himself. Fishing, painting, carving seals, and even clearing a plot in the back courtyard to grow vegetables. I happily enjoyed the leisure as well. After finishing manor affairs each day, I joined him in those little pastimes. We brewed tea while admiring plum blossoms on snowy days, flew kites on spring days, and caught fireflies on summer nights. Sometimes, in high spirits, we would dismiss all the servants, set up a grill in the courtyard, roast meat while drinking wine, looking nothing like a prince and princess consort. Yet that very idleness did not make me lower my guard. I knew what violent undercurrents hid beneath this calm surface. Although Rongzhe appeared indifferent to worldly affairs, I had read the books in his study. Among those seemingly miscellaneous travelogues and random notes were many of his own annotations on the court situation. Sharp handwriting, unique insights, often striking straight at the heart. He paid attention not only to changes in the capital, but also to border grain supplies, Jiangnan Water Conservancy, and even fluctuations in commoner market prices. Is this something a houseless prince should concern himself with? I never exposed him. I only quietly helped him organize his books and grind more ink. Occasionally I would casually mention news I had heard or offer a few shallow observations about current affairs. Each time, Rongzhe would pause his brush and listen to me with full attention. One day I was in the accounting room balancing this month's expenses when Hongmei ran in panting, a letter in her hand. "A letter from the Marquis's manor, Your Highness." I took it. It was written by Nanny Chu beside the second old madam. Only a few short lines, yet they made me frown slightly. The day seaside consort returned to the manor, she cried until her eyes swelled. It was said her life inside the prince's manor was not as glorious as it appeared on the surface. Although the Prince of Jin's manor still had no principal consort, the Lady Li who had entered earlier as side consort was the cousin of the noble consort and possessed deep roots. Side consort might hold the nominal position of managing the household, but the account books were nothing but an empty shell. Not only did she have to cover the Prince of Jin's extravagant spending, she also had to fill in the deficits. Previously, although the Prince of Jin had favored her, he liked fresh faces even more. Lately he had taken in 2 new concubines as lovely as flowers and jade, one a renowned courtesan from Jiangnan, the other the daughter of a fallen minister. Both were masters of seduction and scheming. To compete for his affection, side consort not only handed out pieces of her dowry to the servants, but also wrote several letters to Nanny Chu in a tone dripping with sarcasm. She had even sent people back to the Marquis's manor multiple times, crying poverty in front of father and begging for money. Father's heart ached unbearably. It was said he had secretly opened his private treasury and sent several cartloads of goods over to her. I folded the letter and casually tossed it into the candle flame, watching it burn to ashes. "Your Highness, why are you smiling?" Hongmei asked curiously. I watched the paper gradually turn to cinders and said indifferently, "Nothing. I just find it amusing that some people have finally gotten exactly what they wished for." Right at that moment, Rongzhe walked in carrying a wild chicken that was still flapping wildly in his hand. "Qingru, look, I just hunted this outside the city. Tonight we'll make beggar's chicken." Mud was smeared across his face, and he grinned like an excited child. I looked at him, and the coldness in my eyes slowly melted away. "All right. I'll have the servants prepare lotus leaves and yellow mud right away." I stepped forward, took out a handkerchief, and gently wiped the dirt from his face. In the blink of an eye, the mid-autumn festival arrived. Although there was a banquet in the palace, according to custom, all married princess consorts and side consorts had to return to their maternal homes to visit their families first. Sai Wan was only a side consort and originally did not qualify to return to the Dingbei Marquis manor. But with the Prince of Jin currently in a position of power and father doting on his daughter, he managed to beg a special favor. The Marquis' manor was decorated with lanterns and colorful silk, even more lively than the day I married out. When I arrived at the manor, Si Wan had already come earlier. She sat in the host's seat in the main hall, covered head to toe in glittering jewels that dazzled the eyes. Father sat beside her with a beaming smile, raising his teacup with both hands in respect. The concubine was even busier, running back and forth, massaging Wanner's shoulders one moment, peeling grapes to feed her the next, as if she were serving the Empress herself. Seeing me enter, Siwan did not bother to stand. She lazily lifted her eyelids. Elder sister has returned. Her voice was soft and sweet. Why didn't Prince Xian come back with you? Ah, that's right. Prince Xian has always been a free, spirited crane among the clouds. He probably can't stand these ordinary formalities. I glanced at her and nodded slightly. His Highness is occupied with official matters. He will come to pick me up later. Official matters. Siwan let out a contemptuous laugh. What official matters could Prince Xian possibly have? Is he busy fighting crickets again? Father chimed in as well. Qingru, this is your fault. Although His Highness Prince Xian is a bit idle, he is still a prince. If outsiders see this, they will think our Marquis Manor doesn't understand proper etiquette. I smiled faintly and walked straight over to sit beside the second old madam. Father is overthinking it. The Prince of Jin didn't come either, so why isn't father scolding his own precious daughter? My gaze lightly swept across Siwan. Sure enough, Siwan's expression froze for a moment, but she quickly forced a smile and stroked the pair of imperial green jade bracelets on her wrist. His Highness originally planned to return with me, but elder sister also knows how busy the court is these days. Imperial father values His Highness greatly, so he truly has no free time. Afraid that I would feel wronged, His Highness specially opened his private treasury and bestowed quite a few treasures upon me. She waved her hand, and the maids behind her immediately brought forward several brocade boxes. When opened, they revealed fine silks, curios, and jade ornaments. They looked luxurious at first glance, but in reality, they were all old items that had been sitting in storage within the palace for years. Elder sister, look at this cloud pattern brocade. It's newly tributed from Jiangnan this year. There are only a few bolts in total, and His Highness gave them all to me. Siwan pointed proudly at one piece of fabric. If elder sister likes it, I can spare one bolt for you. After all, the Prince Xian's manor probably never gets to see anything this fine. I glanced at the so-called cloud brocade. The pattern was bright, but the silk threads had already faded, clearly stock from several years ago. Thank you for your kind offer, younger sister. I lifted my teacup and gently brushed aside a few floating leaves. It's just that we usually use this kind of fabric in our manor to reward the servants for making winter clothes. Since you value it so highly, you should keep it for yourself. You. Siwan shot to her feet in fury. Si Qingru, stop pretending to be rich here. What kind of place is the Prince Xian's manor? Everyone in the capital knows. You're nothing but the consort of an idle prince no one cares about. What right do you have to act superior in front of me? Insolent. The second old madam finally could not hold back any longer. Her cane slammed heavily onto the ground. Wanner, is this the kind of etiquette you learned in the prince's manor? Making such a racket. Where are your manners? Scolded by the second old madam, Siwan's arrogance diminished slightly, but her face was still full of defiance. Second old madam, you are too biased. Elder sister married that useless prince, yet you still treat her like a treasure. Meanwhile, I am now the side consort of His Highness the Prince of Jin. I might even be carrying the little imperial grandson in my belly. Why do you still side with her? Father saw that her words had gone too far and hurriedly tried to calm the situation. Wanner, how can you speak to your elder like that? Sit down at once. He turned to me, his voice carrying a hint of reproach. Qingru, you should say less as well. Wanner finally got to come home once. Can't you yield to her a little? Looking at father's infinitely biased face, I only felt like laughing. Father, everything your daughter said is the truth. That piece of fabric is indeed several years old. If you don't believe me, you can call an experienced embroidery mistress to examine it. Father's expression shifted. He reached out to touch the fabric and indeed felt a slight dampness. His face turned awkward, but he still tried to argue. This is tribute goods. What does old or new matter? As long as it was bestowed by His Highness the Prince of Jin, it is naturally a good item. Having been exposed, Siwan could no longer maintain her composure. Her eyes reddened, tears threatening to fall. Elder sister simply doesn't want to see me do well. I know you're jealous. Jealous that I married better. Jealous that His Highness the Prince of Jin dotes on me. She cried while looking toward father. Father, look at elder sister. She deliberately humiliated me. Father's heart ached unbearably. He was about to open his mouth to scold me, when the steward's voice suddenly rang from outside the door. Marquise, people from the Prince of Jin's manor have arrived. The moment Shi-wan heard this, she immediately stopped crying. Joy bloomed on her face. It must be that His Highness has finished court matters and come to fetch me. She shot me a smug glance, straightened her clothes, and looked toward the entrance with full expectation. The person who walked in was not the Prince of Jin, but a middle-aged eunuch with a fair, beardless face. That eunuch wore an arrogant expression, holding a horsetail whisk. He didn't even bother to glance at Shi-wan. By His Highness's order, I have come to escort side consort Z back to the manor. The smile on Shi-wan's face instantly froze. Where is His Highness? Why didn't he come himself? The eunuch changed his tone. His Highness is currently hosting a banquet in the manor to entertain the new beauties who recently entered. He truly has no time. His Highness instructed that the side consort should return early so as not to delay tonight's service. The moment these words fell, the entire hall fell deathly silent. This was not an escort home, it was a direct slap to the face. Siwon's face turned deathly pale, her body swayed. If not for the maids supporting her, she might have fainted on the spot. This can't be. His Highness said he loved me the most. The eunuch showed clear impatience. Enough dawdling. Side consort, please hurry. If you delay and cause His Highness to become angry, no one can bear the consequences. Shi-wan looked desperately toward father. Father was also extremely embarrassed, but he did not dare offend someone close to the Prince of Jin. He could only force a smile and stuff a thick red envelope into the eunuch's hand. Eunuch, you've worked hard. Wanner will leave immediately. Go now. The eunuch weighed the envelope and his expression finally softened a little, yet he still showed zero respect. Siwon was practically half dragged away. Before leaving, she turned back to look at me. In her eyes were resentment, unwillingness, and above all, an unmistakable look of desperation. The gorgeous red clothes on her body now looked like nothing more than a joke. Father collapsed heavily into his chair. In the span of a single moment, he seemed to have aged 10 years. Is this the boundless wealth and glory you spoke of? The second old madam spoke coldly. She doesn't even have the basic dignity of a proper mistress. Si Huang, the daughter you raised is truly talented. Father opened his mouth but could not utter a single word. I stood up and walked to the second old madam's side. It's getting late. Qingru should return as well. The second old madam nodded, her eyes softening. Go on. When I walked out of the Marquis' manor gates, Rongju's carriage was quietly waiting beneath the trees. Seeing me emerge, he lifted the curtain and extended his hand. Ready to go home. Mum, let's go home. I placed my hand in his palm and stepped into the carriage with his help. Inside the carriage it was warm and comfortable. On the small table sat the tea I liked to drink and a plate of freshly baked sesame cakes. Rongju poured me a cup of tea and asked casually, finished watching the show? I lifted the teacup and gently blew on the hot steam. I've finished watching. It's just that the person on the stage is rather pitiful. Rongju smiled and did not ask further. He simply took my slightly cold hand. If it's not pleasant, watch less in the future. We will live our own lives. Why bother with those clowns jumping around? I leaned my head against Rongju's shoulder and closed my eyes. After the winter solstice passed, a heavy snowfall blanketed the capital. The Prince of Jin had been making continuous moves at court. Sometimes winning over military generals, sometimes befriending civil officials, and even beginning to interfere with appointments in the Ministry of Revenue and the Ministry of Personnel. His momentum made it seem as though the crown prince position was already within his grasp. Forming factions was the greatest taboo for an emperor. Rongju held a copy of the Classic of Mountains and Seas in his hands, his attitude still completely at ease. Third brother is getting impatient. He flipped to the next page and said indifferently, if he can't plug that huge hole in the Ministry of Revenue, this winter will be hard to get through. I sat beside him embroidering a handkerchief. My hands paused. The Ministry of Revenue has a deficit. Rongju nodded. To win over those greedy ministers, he has taken money out of his own pocket many times over the past 2 years. Add in the construction of private villas and the nurturing of private soldiers. The amount is staggering. How could his salary and imperial rewards possibly be enough? My heart stirred slightly. I suddenly thought of Siwon. So he has started killing the chicken to get the eggs. Rongju smiled, but his eyes were cold. I'm afraid this chicken is in danger. Sure enough, not long after, news came from the Marquis' manor that Siwon had returned to her maternal home again. This time she did not come openly but snuck in through the side gate. It was said she cried in father's study for an entire afternoon. When she left, her eyes were swollen like peaches, but she clutched several banknotes tightly in her hand. Father sat silently in his study the entire night. The next morning he claimed illness and did not attend court. Hongmei returned from gathering information, her face full of indignation. "Your Highness, you wouldn't believe it. This time second young miss really demanded a lion's share. She said the Prince of Jin wanted to build up his power base and needed money for liquidity. In one go, she took 50,000 taels. 50,000 taels. I laughed coldly. As father emptied out the family fortune to give to her. That's not all?" Hongmei lowered her voice. "The steward said the Marquis has secretly sent people to appraise 2 manors in the western part of the city. He wants to sell them for cash." The needle in my hand suddenly pricked my fingertip. A drop of fresh blood welled up. The western manors were the ancestral property of the Shi family, used for ancestral sacrifices and to support widows and orphans within the clan. For the sake of a concubine-born daughter and that empty dream of becoming the emperor's father-in-law, father was willing to touch even the family's ancestral foundation. "Your Highness, should we intervene?" Hongmei asked worriedly. I put my finger in my mouth and sucked gently. My eyes gradually turned icy. "We must intervene, of course, but not by me personally." I stood up, walked to the writing desk, picked up a brush and wrote a letter. "Recently the clan head has been away, so we can only inform Big Brother. Take some guards and personally deliver this letter to the Northern Grand Camp. Remember, you must hand it directly to him." Hongmei nodded seriously, tucked the letter away, and hurried off. 3 days later, elder brother returned to the Marquis' manor wearing his armor. The second old madam and several clan elders accompanied him. The group marched aggressively straight into father's study. At that moment, father was holding a freshly signed land deed, preparing to hand it over to the trusted aide Si-Wan had sent. The study door was kicked open by elder brother. Father jumped in fright, his hand trembling so badly that the deed fell to the floor. What are you all doing? Are you trying to rebel?" Father shouted, blustering on the outside while weak within. Elder brother bent down to pick up the deed, glanced at it, and laughed coldly. "Rebel? I think the one trying to rebel is you, father." He slammed the deed onto the table. "Selling ancestral property and colluding with a prince. Father, you want to push the entire Shi family into the grave." Father's face turned ashen, but he still tried to defend himself. "Nonsense. I'm doing this for Wanner. She is having a hard time in the prince's manor right now. As her father, what's wrong with helping my daughter a little?" The second old madam stepped forward with her cane, trembling with rage. "You're using the entire Marquis Manor's foundation to help a concubine's daughter. Si Huang, is your head filled with mud? If the Prince of Jin succeeds, our Si family will." The second old madam's cane struck father's back hard, cutting off his dream. "Even if he succeeds, you won't live to see it. Open your eyes and look at the court. The imperial censor's memorials have already piled up on the emperor's desk, all accusing the Prince of Jin of forming factions and accepting bribes. At a time like this, if you give him money, you're practically handing the Si family over to be slaughtered. Do you think we haven't died fast enough?" Father howled in pain from the beating but still refused to submit. "Second old madam, you don't understand. This is only temporary, as long as..." A clan elder who had been silent until now finally spoke. "Si Wang, as the head of the Marquis' manor, your actions are truly absurd and unworthy of carrying the family's burden. Today's family punishment is to wake you up." Several strong servants immediately stepped forward, pressed father onto the bench, and began administering the family rod, each strike tearing open his flesh. Miserable screams echoed without end. "I am the Marquis. How dare you beat me? I am Wanner's father. When Wanner becomes empress, I will make all of you pay." Father was still talking tough, unaware that his words only proved how foolish and beyond saving he was. Elder brother stood to the side, eyes red, but from beginning to end he did not plead for mercy. This beating was necessary. If they did not beat father and strip him of power, the entire Si family would be dragged into the grave by him. After 20 strikes, father was barely breathing. Although the clan head was not in the manor, the second old madam brought a handwritten letter from him. From today onward, the silver treasury and all properties of the Marquis' manor would be jointly managed by the legitimate eldest grandson Shi Ling and the second old madam. Sai Wang was forbidden from spending even a single coin or disposing of any family assets. Any violation would result in expulsion from the clan. The trusted aide sent by Si Wan saw the situation turning sour and slipped away early. When Shi Wan learned of this in the prince's manor, she flew into a rage and smashed everything in an entire room. She even cursed father for being useless. Because the Prince of Jin could not get the money to plug his deficit, the imperial censors seized the weakness and immediately submitted severe impeachment memorials. The emperor, considering their father-son relationship, did not investigate deeply but still issued an edict reprimanding the Prince of Jin and ordering him to shut his gates and reflect for 3 months. For the Prince of Jin, who was burning with ambition to seize the throne, this was no different from a heavy blow to the head. I sat in the warm pavilion of the prince's manor, listening to Hong Mei vividly recount the chaotic scene at the Marquis's manor. My heart barely rippled. Rongja sat across from me peeling an orange. He brought a perfectly peeled segment to my lips and said indifferently, "Luckily, Big Brother returned in time this round. Otherwise, that fire would have truly burned right up to the Marquis Manor's eyebrows." I opened my mouth and ate the orange. The sweet, sour taste spread across my tongue. Big Brother understands the situation. It's just hard on him. He has to bear the reputation of being unfilial. Rongja chuckled softly. In this man-eating world, how much is reputation worth? Protecting the lives of the entire family, that is true capability. He looked at me, his gaze deepening. Qing Ru, I'm afraid the sky over the capital is truly about to change. You should go out less these days. I nodded to him. I know. Your Highness must also be careful. Rongja took my hand, his palm warm and dry. Don't worry, this prince is merely an idle one. Even if the sky falls, there are taller people to hold it up. He spoke lightly, but I knew he had never truly stood outside the game. That night, lanterns burned brightly in the Marquis's manor until dawn. Father lay prone on the bed groaning in pain while the concubine cried bitterly beside him. Elder brother and the second old madam discussed strategies in the study all night, figuring out how to clean up the mess father had left and how to protect the Shi family amid the storm of the imperial succession struggle. As for Shi Wan in the prince's manor, facing the Prince of Jin's coldness and the mockery of the other concubines, she finally tasted the flavor of true despair. I leaned against the soft couch holding a medical book but couldn't read a single word. Rongja had been summoned to the palace since morning. It was said the emperor was slightly unwell and had called several princes to attend him. It was not until the lanterns were lit that the carriage curtain was finally lifted. Your Highness has returned. The maids hurried forward to help him remove his snow-covered cloak. Rongja waved them away and strode over to me. Qing Ru, give me your hand. His voice carried a smile, as if showing off a treasure. I got something for you. I reached out my hand. It was a piping hot roasted sweet potato. I smelled it on the way back and bought one. Here, eat it while it's hot. It won't taste as good once it cools. How can your Highness still act like a child? I scolded lightly, but the corners of my lips could not help but curve upward. I peeled away the crispy charred skin, revealing the soft, golden inside. I broke it in half and gave him one portion. 1/2 each. Rongju did not refuse. He took it and bit down, squinting in satisfaction. As expected, it only tastes good when I'm sharing it with you. After drinking a sip of hot tea, Rongju's expression gradually turned serious. Imperial father's illness, I'm afraid it's not looking good. He lowered his voice, his slender fingers tapping lightly on the table. Third brother did not stay idle during his confinement either. Today he knelt outside the hall of nourishing the heart for 2 full hours, claiming he was praying for Imperial father's health. In reality, he wanted to use filial piety to regain favor. I understood clearly in my heart, the Prince of Jin was getting anxious. After being punished previously over the deficit, and now with the Emperor seriously ill, if he could not turn the situation around now, the Crown Prince position might slip away. What about the Emperor? Imperial father did not see him, but he also did not send anyone to drive him away. Rongja laughed coldly. The heart of an emperor is the most unpredictable. He is waiting to see who cannot hold back first. If the Prince of Jin is pushed to the brink, he will definitely try every means to pull in all available forces. Although father has been stripped of power, grandfather's connections and prestige are still a juicy piece of meat. Don't worry about Big Brother's side. He is a smart man. Now that he controls the Marquis's manor, As long as he keeps the gates tightly shut, and does not casually take any side, this fire will not reach us. Rongju gripped my hand a little tighter. He protects the foundation of the Marquis' manor, and I will protect you. As for the others, a cold flashed in his eyes. Then, it depends on their fate. Hongmei ran in from outside, bringing a gust of cold air, her face slightly panicked. Your Highness, something big has happened. Something happened at the Prince of Jin's manor. I raised my eyes and looked at her. Speak clearly. Hongmei caught her breath before continuing. Just now a servant from the Marquis' manor came with news. Tonight a major incident occurred at the Prince of Jin's manor. Side concert. She knelt in the snow for an entire hour and then miscarried. Although I had already guessed that Siwan would not live an easy life, hearing this news still gave me pause. Miscarriage? What happened? Hongmei curled her lip. It's said that the Prince of Jin was in a bad mood and drinking in Consort Li's room. Side Consort C insisted on bringing ginseng soup to curry favor, but a maid beside Consort Li tripped her. The entire bowl of soup spilled onto the Prince of Jin. He flew into a rage and punished her by making her kneel in the courtyard to reflect on her actions. With such heavy snow and her already frail body, she hadn't knelt long before she started bleeding. It's said the blood soaked into the snow, turning an entire patch bright red. When the imperial physician arrived, he only shook his head and said it was a male fetus that had already taken shape. What a pity! I felt a chill run through my entire body. How truly ruthless. What about father? I asked. Doesn't he dote on Wan'er the most? Hongmei sighed. The Marquis is anxious as an ant on a hot pan inside the manor. He wanted to go to the Prince of Jin's manor to visit, but he has no money for bribes, and couldn't even enter the gates. He wanted to ask the second old madam and the eldest young master to write invitations for the imperial physician. But the eldest young master said that once a daughter marries out, she is like spilled water. The Marquis' manor cannot intervene in imperial family matters over a mere side consort, and invite disaster upon the entire house. The Marquis knelt weeping outside the Hall of Honor until his voice turned hoarse, yet no one spared him a single glance. I closed my eyes gently. This was precisely the wealth and glory father had chased after with all his heart. Rongja had been listening quietly the entire time. Only now did he toss the orange peel in his hand into the brazier. Karma truly never misses its mark, he commented lightly. If she had known her place from the beginning and lived contentedly, even as the wife of an ordinary family, she could have enjoyed a peaceful life. But she insisted on fighting for what was never meant to be hers. Falling to this end is simply the consequence of her own choices. I gazed at the flickering candle flame before me, and my heart suddenly felt clear and bright. I remembered how Siwan had flaunted herself before me right before my marriage, and how vicious father's face had looked when he tried to seize mother's relics to pad her dowry. Back then, they probably never imagined a day like this would come. Your Highness is right. I picked up the remaining half of the roasted sweet potato. Though it had cooled slightly, it was still sweet all the way to the heart. The snow is too heavy outside, and the roads are slippery. Let's not go out anymore. Simply protecting this small corner of our sky is already very good. Indeed. I smiled softly. I am merely an idle princess consort with no great ambitions. We wish to live quietly, yet some people refuse to let us. The invitation from the Prince of Jin's manor arrived the moment the snow stopped falling. Written on the gilded card were the words, Winter Family Banquet, a gathering of brothers. The handwriting was careless. This was clearly a Hongmen banquet. I tossed the invitation onto the table. The Prince of Jin hit a wall with Imperial Father and is now like a cornered beast, desperately seeking a way out. He wants to use this banquet to force you to pick a side, or to destroy you. I straightened the lapels of his robe and smoothed out the wrinkles. If it is a Hongmen banquet, Your Highness naturally has to attend. Rongja took my hand and sighed softly. I also want to see what tricks he can still pull at this point. I gripped his hand back, our palms warming each other. Then I will go with Your Highness. That place was now no different from a dragon's lair or tiger's den. He hesitated slightly. I looked up and smiled gently. I am your princess consort. Since we are husband and wife, we should naturally face wind and rain together. Moreover, my eyes turned slightly cold as I looked toward the bare branches outside the window. I also wanted to see what my so-called good younger sister looked like now. Inside the Prince of Jin's manor, lanterns and festive decorations hung everywhere, so lavish they were blinding. The moment we stepped through the gates, a wave of hot air rushed over us, thick with the heavy scent of powder and rouge. Ninth brother, you've finally arrived. The Prince of Jin held a wine cup in his hand. His face was an unnatural red, and his eyes were dark and gloomy. Siwan was leaning against a soft cushion at his feet. In just half a month, she had transformed into a completely different person. She had wasted away until she was nothing but skin and bones, her cheekbones sharply protruding. The moment she saw me enter, she stared at me fixedly. Elder sister is here. Well, seeing me like this now, you must be gloating inside, right? I remained calm and did not respond to her. I simply followed Rongji and sat down. Younger sister has just suffered a miscarriage. Instead of resting properly in your chambers, why have you come out to face the wind? If you catch a root illness, what will you do in the future? My voice was indifferent, showing neither joy nor sorrow. Shut your mouth. Siwan suddenly shot upright and screamed. Don't pretend to be kind here. My child was killed by all of you. If father hadn't failed to get the money, if you hadn't watched me die without helping, why would His Highness have gotten angry? Why would my child have lost its life? She had gone somewhat mad, her words incoherent and vicious, ready to bite anyone in sight. The Prince of Jin did not stop her. Instead, he watched the scene with interest, as if enjoying a play, and observing Rongju's reaction at the same time. Ninth brother, it seems this younger sister of yours harbors quite a grudge against you. The Prince of Jin swirled his wine cup, smiling in a way that wasn't quite a smile. But that's understandable. Both are daughters of the Sea family. One sits high above as principal consort, while the other task. Fate truly is unfair. Rongju peeled a peanut, not even bothering to lift his eyelids. If third brother feels it is unfair, you might as well elevate your side consort to principal consort. The position of third sister-in-law is still vacant, after all. The Prince of Jin's face stiffened. Fury flashed in his eyes. I lowered my gaze and smiled faintly. How could he possibly marry a concubine-born daughter as his principal consort? To him, Siwan was nothing more than a toy, a tool. After 3 rounds of drinks, the Prince of Jin was clearly intoxicated. His words no longer held any restraint. He repeatedly probed Rongju's stance on the succession struggle, and even hinted that as long as Rongju was willing to hand over the rights to operate several mines under the name of the Prince Xian's manor, he would guarantee ninth brother boundless glory and wealth once he ascended the throne. Rongju only played dumb, claiming he only knew how to eat, drink, and enjoy life and understood nothing of business. Suddenly, the Prince of Jin slammed his wine cup onto the ground and shot a look at Siwan, who was sitting on the floor. Her body trembled. She picked up a wine jug from the table and walked toward me. Elder sister. She stopped in front of me and forced an ugly smile. In the past, younger sister was ignorant and angered elder sister. Today, on behalf of His Highness's wine, I wish to apologize. You must drink this cup. Otherwise, it means you still hold a grudge against me. The wine in her cup carried a strange fragrance. Having studied pharmacology for years, I only needed one sniff to recognize it. Joy-inducing incense mixed with an extremely potent aphrodisiac. This was a forbidden drug in the palace. Once consumed, it would not only cloud one's mind but also cause unbearable heat and restlessness, easily leading to humiliating behavior. They wanted to destroy my reputation, make me commit shameful acts in front of everyone, humiliate Rongju, and ruin the Prince Shan's manor's good name. Their hearts were truly vicious, their methods utterly despicable. In that case, I would add fuel to their fire. Why isn't elder sister drinking? Siwan stepped closer. Is it that you refuse to give me face, or that you refuse to give His Highness the third prince face? Rongju was about to stand and block the wine when I gently placed my hand over the back of his. I rose and accepted the cup from Siwan's hand. Wild glee nearly spilled from her eyes. Younger sister is joking. Between sisters, how could there be overnight grudges? I held the cup but did not drink it. Instead, I took a step forward and grasped Siwan's hand. It's just that I see younger sister's complexion is truly poor, and your hands are frighteningly cold. You have just lost a child and your body is at its weakest. Logically, this cup should be one I offer to you, to wish you a swift recovery and that you may soon bear another child, His Highness the Prince of Jin. As I spoke, I subtly twisted my wrist. The rim of the cup was lightly dusted with a colorless powder I had prepared. Come, younger sister. Let elder sister personally feed you this cup. My hands, strengthened from years of helping the second old madam tend to flowers and plants, were far stronger than Siwan's, who had lived in luxury. I gripped her chin tightly. Before she could react, I poured the entire cup straight into her mouth. Siwan choked and coughed violently, trying to spit it out, but I swiftly slapped her back hard, forcing her to swallow. Elder sister truly went through great trouble for this, I said as I released her and stepped back. I took out a handkerchief to wipe my hands as if I had just touched something filthy. Si Qingru, what have you done? The Prince of Jin slammed the table and shot to his feet, eyes bulging. Before he could explode, the drug took effect on Ziwan. Hot so hot. She began tearing at her own collar. Her eyes grew dazed and unfocused. Her entire body went limp and collapsed to the ground as she let out shameful moans. Your Highness, save me, I feel so uncomfortable. Gasps of shock immediately filled the great hall. Everyone stared in disbelief at the scene before them. The dignified side consort of the Prince of Jin was behaving so shamelessly right in the middle of a banquet, in front of so many people. Damn it! The Prince of Jin's face turned ashen with rage. He kicked Siwan aside. Drag her away. Drag this disgraceful thing away. But Siwan had completely lost her senses. Even after being kicked, she felt no pain. She crawled back toward him, and even began tearing at the Prince of Jin's clothes. Your Highness, please, give it to me. Her lewd appearance was unbearable to watch. Is this the etiquette of the Prince of Jin's manner? I looked coldly at Siwan writhing on the ground. Rongja stood up and shielded me behind him. I originally thought His Highness the Prince of Jin invited us to this banquet to reminisce about brotherly affection. I never expected we would be forced to watch such a filthy spectacle. I stared at the Prince of Jin. If I had drunk that cup earlier, would the person acting like this right now be me? Third brother's methods are truly brilliant. Rongju said angrily. You actually dared to scheme against Qingru. He was usually gentle as jade, but when truly angered, he carried an overwhelming pressure that made others too terrified to meet his gaze. The Prince of Jin was rendered speechless by the accusation. Looking at Siwan going mad on the floor, he felt his blood rush straight to his head. Ninth brother, you that wine. You know best what was in that cup. Rongja cut him off coldly. If third brother cannot tolerate us husband and wife, then let today mark the end of our brotherly bond. Qingru, we're leaving. He put his arm around my shoulders and strode out without even glancing at the chaos on the floor. Rongza. You dare leave, if you step out that door today. The Prince of Jin's furious roar echoed behind us. Rongja paused for a single step but did not turn around. We can talk about the future later, but anyone who dares touch even a finger of my princess consort today, I will make their blood spray on the spot. He suddenly drew the soft sword at his waist and swung it casually. No one had expected that this idle prince, who supposedly only knew how to admire flowers and walk birds, actually possessed profound martial skills. The Prince of Jin opened his mouth, but ultimately did not dare stop us. We left the Prince of Jin's manor without any hindrance. Qingru, are you all right? I shook my head and took out a clean handkerchief from my sleeve to wipe the thin layer of sweat from his temple. I'm fine. I understand pharmacology. One sniff was enough to know what was in the wine. Rongja took my hand and pressed his face into my palm, taking a deep breath. In that moment earlier, I really wanted to kill him. His voice was low. I know. I gently stroked his hair. But now is still not the time. However, after what happened today, the Prince of Jin's reputation is completely ruined. A side consort going mad and losing all decorum at a banquet. This scandal will spread throughout the capital by tomorrow. Moreover, the more desperate he becomes, the more he exposes his weaknesses. Imperial father hates princes forming factions and fratricide the most. Once today's events reach the palace, it will be difficult for him to turn things around. Rongja lifted his head. His eyes had returned to calm. You're right. He dug his own grave. He has no one to blame but himself. He looked at me with a trace of guilt. Now that the mask has been torn off, I'm afraid our days of peace will not last much longer. I leaned into his embrace and listened to the wind howling outside the window. We've had enough peaceful days. Occasionally stretching our muscles and bones isn't bad either. That night passed, and the situation in the capital shifted completely. The Prince of Jin's manor was surrounded by imperial guards like an iron barrel. Memorials of impeachment from the censorate flew into the palace like snowflakes. Just when everyone thought the overall situation was settled, shocking news came from the palace. The emperor was critically ill and had fallen into a coma. Using the excuse of attending to the emperor's illness, the Prince of Jin forced his way into the imperial palace. That night, Rongzhu did not return to the manor. I sat alone beneath the lamp, tightly gripping the jade whistle used to summon the hidden guards. Hongmei stood guard at the door, her face tense. She changed my tea 3 times. Your Highness, you should rest a little. From the Marquis's manor, Nanny Chu had secretly sent word. What happened? Has something gone wrong? It was said that last night the Marquis changed into night clothes and secretly entered the ancestral hall. Nanny Chu did not dare stop him. She could only watch helplessly as he carried a brocade box out from inside and delivered it to the Prince of Jin's manor in the middle of the night. Hearing this, the tension in my back unexpectedly loosened. I even let out a soft laugh. In the end, he still took it. Hongmei was startled. Your Highness, you can still laugh. That's the imperial decree of absolute pardon. If the Prince of Jin obtains that golden token of immunity, won't we? Silly girl. I took a sip of hot tea to wash down the fishy taste in my throat. Who told you that what is enshrined in the ancestral hall is the real imperial decree of absolute pardon? Hongmei scratched her head, looking utterly confused. Since father has chosen this path, then let it be heaven's will. I blew out the candle and looked out at the pitch black night beyond the window. Go to sleep. Tomorrow morning, there will be a good show to watch. The next morning, when the sun was high in the sky, the sound of urgent hoofbeats finally rang out from the front courtyard. Rongzhu strode into the room, his face carrying an unprecedented lightness and even a hint of glee. Qingru. He pulled me into a tight embrace, so strong it felt as though he wanted to merge me into his bones. It's over. Everything is finally over. I hugged him back, feeling the rapid pounding of his heart. The Prince of Jin had lost completely. Rongzhu pulled me down to sit and his eyes sparkled. You didn't see third brother's face at that moment. He knelt before Imperial Father, holding up that brocade box with tears and snot covering his face, claiming it was the iron certificate of pardon presented by the Dingbei Marquis and begging for his life. The entire court of civil and military officials was stunned speechless. Even Imperial Father's expression changed. After all, that object was bestowed by the founding emperor. If it were real, even Imperial Father would have been put in a difficult position. At this point, Rongzhu couldn't hold back his laughter. His shoulders shook with mirth. And then, I asked, though I had already guessed the outcome. Then Imperial Father ordered him to open it. Rongzhu mimicked the head eunuch's gesture of lifting the lid. Everyone stretched their necks to look. Guess what was inside? There was no imperial decree of absolute pardon. Only a dirty, broken gray stone and a letter written personally by the old Marquis. Rongzhu took out a sheet of paper from his sleeve and handed it to me. It was grandfather's handwriting. This unworthy descendant has crooked thoughts and unjust intentions. He vainly attempted to use this object to disrupt the court order and destroy the law. If the ancestors of the Xi family have spirits in heaven, they shall use this stone to suppress your evil heart. Furthermore, Sai Huang stole the family's treasured artifact and colluded with a prince. He is the shame of the Xi clan. From today onward, he is expelled from the family lineage. His life and death no longer concern us. I looked at those lines, my eyes growing slightly hot. That was my grandfather. The old general who had fought his entire life with integrity and unyielding loyalty had used a single stone to mock his greedy son and the ambitious prince. And at this life and death moment, he had used such a decisive method to completely sever the Marquis' manor's ties with Shi Huang. At that moment, the grand hall had been so silent one could hear a pin drop. Rongzhu continued. Third brother was completely stupefied. He held the stone with hands shaking like leaves. He screamed that your father had tricked him and tried to push all the blame onto him. But Imperial Father didn't even bother looking at him. Rongzhu laughed coldly and took out a stack of copied memorials. Combined with the evidence of him illegally mining iron and manufacturing private weapons, this was clear proof of treason. One stone became the final straw that broke the camel's back. Imperial Father immediately issued an edict stripping the Prince of Jin of his title and confining him in the Imperial clan court. As for your father? He looked at me, his gaze slightly cautious. Although he failed to steal the imperial treasure, the nature of the crime was severe, and he colluded with a prince. He has been exiled 3,000 miles away and is forbidden from ever returning to the capital. I lowered my eyes and gently stroked the paper. That was a path he chose himself. How is grandfather? The old marquise had already pleaded illness and stayed home. Because of this incident, the Marquis's manor was slightly implicated, but thanks to that letter of severance and elder brother's military achievements on the border, Imperial Father did not extend his anger to the manor. Moreover, the imperial decree of absolute pardon is the protective talisman the founding emperor bestowed upon the Marquis's manor. Imperial Father will not touch it. Rongju gripped my hand tightly. Qingru, the second old madam, taught you very well. Your grandfather and elder brother also protected you very well. The real imperial decree of absolute pardon has always been in your hands, hasn't it? I looked up and met his knowing gaze. I nodded and pointed to the inconspicuous red sandalwood chest in the corner of the room. Grandmother had a gentle nature. The year mother passed away, grandfather entrusted it to the second old madam. Before I married out, she placed it at the bottom of my dowry chest. She said it was not safe in the Marquis's manor, and that bringing it to the prince's manor might one day save my life. Hearing this, Rongja sighed and pulled me into his arms. Having a wife like you, what more could this husband ask for? Having relatives like yours truly means 3 lifetimes of accumulated blessings. And Shiwan. His voice turned cold. With third brother's downfall, the tree has fallen and the monkeys have scattered. Her position as side consort is now nothing but a joke. We don't even need to act. She won't live much longer. Just before father was escorted out of the capital, a light rain fell over the city. I went to the Ministry of Justice's main prison. Rongju had wanted to accompany me, but I refused. There were some words that only I could say clearly to him. He looked at me for a long time before finally helping me tighten my cloak and slipping a command token into my hand. Go. No matter what you say or do, I will bear it all for you. The prison guard saw the token and respectfully led me to the deepest part of the jail. Your Highness, he's inside. These past few days he has been screaming and demanding to see you until his voice gave out. I nodded and signaled for the guard to withdraw. Through the iron bars, I saw a figure curled up on a pile of straw. In just a few days, father seemed to have aged 20 years. The clothes on his body were filthy, his hair disabled and streaked with gray. He was gaunt and thin, bearing no trace of the former majestic Dingbei Marquis. Hearing footsteps, he suddenly lifted his head. Qingru. Is that Qingru? He crawled over and clutched the iron bars tightly. You've come to save father, haven't you? You are a princess consort. As long as you beg Prince Xian or have your grandfather step forward, father can avoid exile. Qingru, I am your real father. I looked at him silently without speaking. When he had shouted himself hoarse and his voice gradually weakened into despairing sobs, I finally opened my mouth. My tone was calm, as if discussing something unrelated to me. Father, do you still remember how I begged you the year mother passed away? Father froze, clearly not expecting me to bring up that matter. Mother was gravely ill and only wished to see you one last time. I was only 3 years old. I knelt outside your study the entire night, begging you to go see her. But what did you do? You were in the western courtyard playing happy family with the concubine and Shiwan. You said I was inauspicious. Those 2 words had once been the greatest nightmare of my childhood. Now, speaking them felt strangely light, without any pain. Father's eyes darted away guiltily. That was in the past. How could I have known your mother would actually? Indeed. You never expected it. I smiled faintly. You never expected mother would die. Just like you never expected that the daughter you cherished most, Siwan, would take all the remaining private money you had left and attempt to flee the moment the Prince of Jin fell from power. What? Father's eyes widened in disbelief. Wanner has always been the most filial. How could she? Why couldn't she? I took out a familiar pouch from my sleeve and tossed it in front of him. She took that money to bribe the soldiers and escape the prince's manor. Unfortunately, she was too foolish. She didn't know the Prince of Jin's manor had been sealed tighter than an iron barrel. The moment she showed her face, she was caught. She has already been sent to the pleasure quarters. It's said that because of the scene she caused at the banquet, many clients have specifically requested her. She's now suffering from a filthy disease and has been thrown into the lowest ranks. No, impossible. My Wanner. Father clutched his head and wailed. That was the daughter he had doted on and raised for over 10 years, the hope he had wanted to elevate to empress. Now that hope had shattered and fallen into such filth. This blow was even more cruel to him than exile itself. So you can't bear it. I looked coldly at his collapse. Did you know? The concubine you cherished for over 10 years, the moment she heard you had been imprisoned, cleaned out everything valuable in the western courtyard and ran off with a traveling merchant who deals in exotic goods. She didn't even come to see you once. She only left one sentence. I paused and spoke each word clearly. She said, "Following a useless man like you is not even as good as following a beast trader." Father spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body went limp and collapsed onto the ground. Friends scattering when one falls from power. This was the ending of the so-called true love he had sacrificed everything to pursue. Si Huang, open your eyes and look clearly. I sat down and stared straight at him through the iron bars. For their sake, you mistreated your legitimate wife, neglected your legitimate son and daughter, and even attempted to sell ancestral property and steal the family treasure. Now, the ones who have preserved the Sai family's honor are the legitimate son and daughter you once despised. The one who can still give you a shred of dignity in this prison is the daughter you hated. I took a bowl of steaming dumplings from the food box and placed it beside the bars. Big brother asked me to bring this. He said this is the final act of filial piety, to repay the debt of giving him life. From the day you begin your exile, whether you live or die will no longer concern the Dingbei Marquis manor. Father's hands trembled as he reached for the bowl but couldn't hold it steady. Tears mixed with blood dripped into the dumplings. He stuffed them into his mouth while sobbing. This is all retribution. I stood up and looked at him one final time. I hated Shi Wan, but I hated you even more. The man who once commanded wind and rain in the Marquis manor was now nothing but a homeless dog. Father, have a safe journey. I turned and left the prison without looking back. Outside, the rain had stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds and fell warmly on my body. Rongja stood beside the carriage holding a green oil paper umbrella, waiting for me. Seeing me emerge, he quickly stepped forward to tie my loosened cloak. Finished speaking. Finished, let's go home. He took my hand, our 10 fingers tightly intertwined. The second old madam said she's making the sweet and sour pork ribs you like tonight. She's waiting for us to come home and eat. I looked at his gentle profile and finally revealed a genuine smile. All right, let's go home. The old emperor passed away. The fourth prince ascended the throne, changing the reign title to Yongan. The wings of the Prince of Jin were plucked clean. As for the Dingbei Marquis manor, thanks to grandfather's righteous act of severing ties and elder brother's outstanding military achievements, not only were they not implicated, they were even shown greater favor. Elder brother inherited the Marquis title and became the new Dingbei Marquis, continuing to guard the border. Rongja had neither chosen a side during the succession struggle nor kicked others while they were down. The new emperor felt completely at ease with this ninth brother who neither fought nor schemed. With a wave of his brush, he bestowed generous rewards, allowing him to live as a wealthy and idle prince. On the day the imperial decree was issued, Rongja spun the prince's seal in his hand and smiled like a fox that had just stolen a chicken. Imperial brother said, "I only want a wife and children by a warm hearth. Why don't we just change your title to Prince of Leisure?" I was sewing a spring robe for him. Hearing this, I glanced at him. Wouldn't that be nice? How many people dream of the life we have but can never obtain it? Of course it's good. He leaned close and secretly kissed my cheek. As long as I have you, even if I were just a commoner, I would still feel it's wonderful. That autumn, the second old madam passed away peacefully. She left with a tranquil smile, her hands still holding the prayer beads that had been worn smooth over the years. Before her final moments, she held my hand and elder brother's. The Si family has been preserved. I have no children of my own, but your grandmother trusted me, and I was able to protect her grandchildren. That is enough. Qing Ru, you are a blessed child. Remember, sometimes not fighting is the best way to fight. After saying those words, she closed her eyes forever. I did not cry loudly. I simply knelt before her bed and kowtowed 3 times with great force. She had given me the warmest affection and taught me how to live wisely in turbulent times. On the day of her funeral, half the nobility of the capital came to pay their respects. Also on that final night of late autumn, behind the pleasure quarters, a torn mat was dragged outside. It was said the deceased was a mad woman. She had once been a fairly popular courtesan, but later contracted a filthy disease and was thrown into the lowest ranks. Before she died, she still clutched a piece of jade that had turned black, muttering that she was a prince consort, that she would become empress. She died on that cold autumn night. One claimed her body. In the end, she was casually tossed onto a mass grave. When Hongmei told me the news, she carefully watched my expression. I only paused for a moment before continuing to paint a fan for Rongza. I know. The younger sister who once lived in the Marquis manor and always wanted to suppress me has finally vanished along with her old dreams. Dust returns to dust, earth to earth. Everyone has their own karma. 3 years later, on the Lantern Festival, the Juke Street of the capital was lit as bright as day, filled with bustling crowds. Father, I want that one. The biggest rabbit lantern. A small jade, like dumpling, sat on Rongja's shoulders, waving his chubby little hand toward the stall ahead. That is our son. His childhood name is Bao Bao. Rongja doted on him and gave him a gentle pat. All right, father will buy right away. Whatever Bao Bao wants, father will buy. Looking at the two identical smiling faces, I walked behind them and couldn't help but curve my lips. Rongja showed not a trace of princely dignity as he protected our son and pushed through the crowd. Not only did he buy the largest rabbit lantern, he also conveniently bought an exquisite lotus lantern for me. He emerged from the crowd, forehead dotted with sweat, yet presented the lotus lantern to me like he was offering a treasure. Bao Bao has his rabbit. Our Qingro must have a lotus lantern too. I accepted the lantern. The warm candlelight made my palm glow. Memories suddenly became hazy. It was from a very long time ago, also on a lantern festival night. Father had taken me and Siwan to see the lanterns. Siwan had liked a very beautiful revolving horse lantern, and father had bought it for her without hesitation. I had also wanted a small rabbit lantern and timidly tugged at father's sleeve. But he had impatiently shaken my hand away. You are the elder sister. Why are you fighting with your younger sister? What's so great about lanterns? Don't we have candles at home? That year, Siwan had held her beautiful revolving horse lantern and smiled like a princess. I had walked behind them empty-handed. Watching their backs, I felt like nothing more than an extra. What's wrong? You don't like it? Rongja noticed my distraction and asked worriedly. Or should we go see if there's a prettier one ahead? I came back to myself and looked at the man before me. In his eyes were only me and our son, who was laughing foolishly while hugging his rabbit lantern. My eyes suddenly stung with tears. No, I like it very much. I gripped the lotus lantern tightly. And Rongju's hand even tighter. This was the most beautiful lantern I had ever seen. All the things I could not have in the past, all the affection I had once been denied, were gently filled by this warm lantern light. Fireworks exploded across the night sky, brilliant and dazzling. Rongja held my hand with one arm and supported our son on his shoulders with the other. Under the blooming fireworks, he turned to look at me. Qingru. The entire prosperous world cannot compare to even half a glance from you. I smiled until tears nearly fell. In the long years ahead, with lanterns, with loved ones, with a home, this was enough. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share Raccoon Tale to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.